So we're going to be graphing square root functions. That's our goal. I want you guys to complete this table. I'm going to do the first one here, which is plugging in the 16 for x. The square root of 16 is 4, and so that would be the y value that goes there. And then I can graph that point. So 16, 4 goes right here. And I'm going to let you guys do the rest of them real quick, and then we'll see how that turns out for you guys. All right, so continuing on. Now, we can apply the transformations that we've learned before to these things. So let's review what those transformations are. For instance, right here, give you guys some bonus points if you can tell me what that one does. What does that one do? Go ahead, Amaya. Good. So. Good job. So if you have x minus h, that translates it to the right. If you have x plus h, that's going to translate it to the left. It's okay. You had the right, I mean, you remembered a big part of it. No, I'm going to give her points. I think that's pretty good that she remembered that. All right. So this one here then, that's our other translation. This one, if you have a plus k, yeah, that's a translation up. All right. Now, these guys here, they did stretches and compressions, but we're not going to worry about stretches and compressions today. Where is it? Oh, it's right there. Would you grab one from a launder for me, too? So they did stretches and compressions. Do you guys remember what else they did if they were negative? Once again, raise your hand. Oh, you were just raising your hand. Does anybody remember what they did if they were negative? Edwin's got it. Edwin's got it. Say what? There we go. They reflect. So, in other words, they flip, right? So, here, even though they do stretch and compress them, we're not going to look at that today. We're not going to get that detailed with these graphs. I just want to make sure you guys know which direction they're going. So, if A is positive, then your graph will, well, actually, let me back up. Let's just do this. If your A is negative, it flips it upside down. Let's say that. So remember how our graph looked like this? You don't need to draw this because we're going to draw a lot of these in a minute. But well, if you had a negative A, it's going to cause it to look like that. It flips it upside down. Okay? But once again, you don't need to draw that. We're going to put that on a chart in a little bit. The B does something else. If you have a negative B, it flips it to, I guess we'll say flips it horizontally. Flips it horizontally. So what does that mean? You know, usually our graph looked like this, right? Well, if I had a negative B, it's going to go that way. So this one, the way we say it is reflect across the, this is across the x-axis. Thank you for asking that. And this is across the y-axis. But I like connect, like, I'm glad you brought that up. Kind of connects it to what we learned before, but we won't be using that language today. We're just going to look at direction. That's all we're going to do. Now, here's another thing I want to talk about before we move on to our next slide. Where was our starting point, you guys? It was at 0, 0, right? Now, if let's say this was a 3 and this was a 5. That would mean my graph goes to the right 3 and up 5, right? So that means this starting point would go over 3 and up 5. So what I want you guys to understand is that since this is usually 0, since the starting point is usually 0, 0, whatever numbers go here, those become your new starting point. So it becomes 3, 5. So these are like our starting point for the square root graph. And then the A and the B will tell us the direction it's going. And that's pretty much all we need to get a nice graph. So we're going to find the starting point, we're going to find the direction, and then we're going to graph it. Okay? So let's look at a chart here. So step one when you're graphing these things is when you have this expression up here, a square root function, the starting point is going to be hk. So we're going to start there. Now you have to remember this is going to be an opposite sign, right? It always has been, ever since we've been doing transformations. That if it's negative, that means we go to the right, which means it's going to actually be a positive k. All right? But the k does not do opposite sign. Whatever it is, it stays the same. So that's going to be our starting point like this. Okay? And then after that, if you have a positive A and a positive B, then it's just going to go the same way the first one that we graphed today did. But if you have a negative A, then your graph is going to get flipped upside down, right? We also said that if you have a negative B, it's going to go flip to the left. And then what if they're both negative? Well, then it's going to be flipped upside down and to the left, so that would look like this. All right, so I think we have enough information to get a pretty decent graph. We have starting points and we have directions, and then we can start graphing some stuff.
So is it the same, or is it like the same, like we're viewing? Like we already went through vocabulary, but like, is it like the same, or is it like?
So we're doing it with just one specific function. Now before, when we did transformations, I didn't really have you guys graph the transformation. I gave you the graph. So today, since we know the shape of a square root function, you guys are going to graph them yourself. But yeah, it is the same transformations. All right. All right, so let's begin here. I'll do number one with you. Okay, so when you want to graph one of these things, the first thing that you want to do is you want to find your h and your k, because that will be your starting point. All right, so what is my h? Good, but we want to do the opposite of it. Negative 3. So let's draw a little arrow there. And what is my k? Negative 5. And we don't do the opposite of the k, we keep it the same. So that one's just going to be negative 5. So there, this is my starting point. Negative 3, negative 5. Right? All right. So part B, we're ready to graph this and get our direction down. So let's start by plotting our starting point. Negative 3, negative 5. Now, what's the A value here? Is it positive A or negative A? Positive A. I agree. The A is positive. And what is the B? We have a negative B. So look at your chart that we copied. You see the direction that should be going? Okay, which way should it be going? Left, and is it up or down? So it's left and up. So like this. And that's as specific as we're going to get with these graphs. We could do stretches and compressions, but I'm not going to get into that. It's not necessary. That's it. Yeah. So, step one, write your starting point, but don't forget to switch the sign of the H. Step two, plot your point and get the direction on there. And you're good to go. Let's do another one here. Can I erase? Any objections? Okay. All right, let's take a look at number 2. why don't you guys ponder for a second what you think the h and the k are. I'll give you a second to think to yourself.
Mr. Billy.
Mm-hmm.
This one, right?
That's it, yeah. All right, so Vidal, what did your group come to conclude there about the starting point? Okay, no problem. Let's see if maybe, no, not here. Michelle, how about you? What do you think your starting point was? 0, 4? I agree. So you might want to make a little note here, but you'll see this multiple times throughout the year. If H or K are missing, they equal 0. So in this case, there was no H. There's no number under the square root with that X that's being subtracted from it. And so that means the H is 0. This is a K because it's outside the square root. Okay. So my starting point would be 0, 4. Let's graph that point. Sorry. Yeah, if H or K are missing, they equal 0. All right, let's see if we can figure out what the A and B are here. So I'm going to call on you for this. So, David, what's the A value up here? It's the number in front of the square root. So, -2, good. So my A, is it positive or negative? All right, now the B is the number that's directly in front of the X, not in front of the square root, but right in front of the X. So I'll put it there for you to help you. That's a 1, right? So that's going to be positive. Okay, so my A is -2, my B is 1. So see if you guys can figure out the direction of this curve, which way it will go. Maybe graph it yourself. See if you guys can figure out what the graph will look like. Use your chart. We have a negative A and a positive B. So what do you think, Adriana? Which way? Give me two different words, either up and down and right or left. Which way should I go? Downwards, right? Good. Okay. So down and right. So it would look something like that. That's it. What are you laughing at? Oh, that's sad. All right. Let's go ahead and do number 3. Okay. All right, so go ahead and see if you guys can find your A and your H and K again here. I'll call on you to share out. For number 3, find your H and K. Mm-hmm. All right, so let me ask Adrian, what do you think, bud? You're close. It's not -1 and 0, it's +1 and 0, because we want to remember to change the sign of the H. So +1 and 0. All right, now I'm going to ask Kimaya, what is the A value on this problem? What's the A value? So that's going to be the B value. Now here's how I know that that's the B value, because it's the number right in front of the X there. Now the A value is the one right in front of the square root. So what's the number right in front of the square root? Yeah, so and there's a negative, right? So that's a -1. So I've got 2 negatives here, a negative A and a negative B. So go ahead and graph it and we'll see how you guys do. One more shot. Go ahead and graph that. See if you can get that direction down. All right, Edwin, what do you think? Which way? I agree. Okay, so there's that. Down and to the left. And then there's a student practice for you guys here, so I'm going to let you guys take care of these 3 problems. Now, I think the part that we've been having the hardest time with so far, as I've been working with you guys, is A is the number in front of the square root. B is the number in front of the x. And if those numbers aren't there, then we can say that they equal 1. So remember, if there's no h or k, those equal 0, right? But if there's no a or b, like this one, for instance, no a, then you can assume that's a 1. Right? All right. So I'll let you guys work on that for a little bit.
I get the letter to Mark.
You think that's you, right?
Yeah. I think she got the wrong. One.
Let me check one thing. Are you texting it?
No. We did not. She got it wrong.
Sorry. So for this first one here, alright, left and upside down with right. 0, 1, up, 3, 2.
Well.
And you start.
No, it's right here.
This one should be.
Yeah. Keep going.
How was
That's the more. Yeah. Those ones.
this one? I think this one should be positive. Don't forget to change the sign of your page.
No, it is.
I think that's the problem you're starting with. Forgetting to change the sign of your page.
No, mine is her. She did negative.
It was her fault.
Yeah, she did negative. Girl, you cheated. You have to cheat. She's hard on that. I did. You cheated. You literally cheated. Why are you cheating?
Invited breakfast you get. You're supposed to be practicing clay.
I'm not a sore loser. I'm not a sore loser. You cheated. Because I do. Yeah.
Really?
You cheated.
They're both 182.
My grandma really wouldn't want to show up. Why? I was literally contemplating jumping off the balcony at night. Why? Because God made me be myself. Why? Huh? Why? I don't know. She sounded good. She said whenever she told her to keep up with the game, she's never going to share a room with me. But we literally wanted to jump off the ledge. Huh? Are you sure? I'll show you the video. How many people have gummies?
So now you're thinking the 80s.
Yeah. That was yes. Like that. Yes, that was I don't know.
So this one's right. This guy you're correct.
I hope you actually mistake all the comments for Bobby. You know they have boba in this thing? I don't like that one. You never had the boba? No. No. What is that? I got perfect.
Shakir, what's your starting point for number 1? -2, 0. Don't forget to change the sign of that number there. So we would go left 2, 0. And we'll ask, Miles, what direction is this thing going? Down and to the right. I agree. All right, next one. Stephen, what's your starting point on number 2? 0, 1. And then we shall ask Denise, what direction are we going there? To the left. And up or down? Yeah. And then Alondra, what's our starting point on number 3? So over 3, up 2. And then our direction. That's interesting. Brianna, what direction are we going on number 3? True. And up or down? So down and left. I agree. All right, guys. Let's see. So we're done for the day. We finished a little bit early.